Okay, let's get to it. So here I have my beautiful bowl, and I have it sitting on my scale because I weigh most of my ingredients. I almost always weigh out my flour. Unless I'm using my scale for like candle making purposes, I weigh out my flour. So here, and flour can weigh different too, so you want to just maybe check that out. But so here I'm using up the last bits of one bag of flour, and then you'll see I switch over to another bag of flour, but we have 3 cups of flour. And then to that, you are going to add your salt, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I took out a little bit of flour here because I had a little too much. And then I'm going to go in next with my salt. Bam. And then you can hardly notice that I do it here, but I dropped a little bit of sugar in. It's like a 1/4 teaspoon, not very much. This is not supposed to be a sweet bread, but the sugar helps with everything. So next you see me with my yeast, and the yeast is going to be a 1/2 teaspoon. I am not weighing out my yeast, even though it looks like I am. I literally don't know what I'm doing. I think I turned my scale off. And there's my 1/2 teaspoon of yeast. And now I'm just kind of mixing. So you want to mix it up, make it all happy. And the weird thing is, I walked away from my scale and the weight fluctuated. So something crazy going on in there. But anyway, okay, so next, now I'm pouring my warm water. So the water you're going to want between 125 and 130. You want to keep it so like if you stuck your finger in it, it's like a comfortable warm, but definitely not a hot. And because I'm making mine the same day, that's why I want my warm water. I think other recipes will call for just like room temperature water. Okay, stop. All right, so this is where I kind of deviated from the recipe, and I'm the queen of deviation. I just tend to deviate from recipes and I can't help it. But normally when I make bread, like you add a fat, you add, a butter, an oil, something, some sort of fat, right? Well, this one you're not, generally you don't see this in the No Knead recipe. And I think the reason why, and I'm not like some big artesian bread maker, but when I have used it, it's just kind of a heavier bread where the crumb is different, where it's not as light and airy and open as when you don't add the oil. So if you want to comment and set me straight, great. I don't know why it is how it is, but I don't think it's necessary to add an oil or a fat to this. You certainly can if you like the flavor. I think it makes maybe a better toasting bread. But if you're looking for that kind of light, airy bread, just keep that fat out. All right, so you're going to notice here, well, I'm kind of scraping the sides down, just making sure I try to get as much down, because you want this bread, I'm going to use this bowl for this bread to rise. I'm not going to put it in a different bowl. So you want to try to get as much as you can off the sides, but it's so forgiving. Like, see there, I'm scrape the sides. It's super, super forgiving, so don't worry about it. And then basically, all you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of plastic wrap and put it over the top. I put it in my oven. I would still say keep it warm if you're making it that same day. Like keep it somewhere where it's not going to get drafty as a bread. Otherwise, if you're doing it overnight, then I think it's a little more flexible. All right, it's going to be in a different bowl because it's a different day, but here it is covered up, waiting for my oven to get warm. And then you can see we have a little shrimp on the side here because we had that for our Thanksgiving, Thanks Patty Day appetizers. Num num. All right, so while that dough is rising for the second time, I put my Dutch oven empty into the oven and started it to preheat it to 450. So there's nothing but a dry pan and heat. And then here is my dough uncovered. I quickly dusted it with some flour, made some cuts in it. You can just do like 2 or 3 cuts. I don't know what I was doing with this one. I think I did some crisscrosses, and it just looks prettier when it's all done baking. And that gets plopped with the parchment into that hot, hot, hot Dutch oven. You don't need to be finicky here about the parchment paper either. You can just put your lid on, and some of it will turn brown in the oven, but it doesn't hurt anything. And if it's St. Patty's Day, you can wear your St. Patty's Day hat and your house dress. So here we are, taking it back out of the oven. It is ready to go on the baking sheet. So see how it's, kind of starting to get a little bit browned, and if you tap, tap, tap it, it sounds hollow. Okay. right, so I just have to show you this because the day I made this, I actually had to make 2 batches because I put it in the oven to keep it safe from the windows that I had open and the the temperature going up and down. And I preheated my oven with the actual bread in it. Thank goodness, plastic that melts on stainless steel is very easy to take off. I was really worried about it. But I couldn't eat this bread, so we had to do a second batch. Thank goodness also this bread is so easy to make. So, yeah, look at it. It smelled good, but I couldn't use it. Hello! And the final product. So this is the same bread I believe that I made that day. And as you can see, after I put it in the oven on the baking sheet, it got nice and crispy and crunchy and browned, and that is how I like it. I have not successfully been able to and you can hear it, like if you hit it, it goes tap, 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 and you can hear that hollow sound. I've not successfully been able to keep this bread around super long. Usually we eat about like half of it right away for dinner. And I use my electric knife to cut it because it's just so hard to cut it right when it comes out. And then later I slice it up and we use it for eating whenever and toasting, and it's so delicious. I'm just going to pop in a few different pictures of the breads that I've made so far. The inside of this bread that I showed you is not the best example of the inside bread. This was like one of my first breads that I ever made because it is really more airy and light, but it is absolutely delicious. I will put the recipe below, but hopefully you try this and let me know what you think. Peace be with you.